Well, everybody, Tony Khan did it. He accomplished something big. He was able to bring a divided community to agree universally that the stunt that he pulled was a bad idea. And the stunt that I'm talking about is airing that all-in footage. You know what I'm talking about. And you know what I'm about to get into right now. Whether you listen to Solid Monster, Wrestling Soup, Don Tony, Quincy Jones Show, Sticky Station, Dave Meltzer, Eric Bishop, Bully Ray, Jim Cornette, OTRS Central, it doesn't matter. He got everyone across the board to agree to the same sentiments that this was a bad idea. Nobody I've seen has said anything different, and I probably won't deviate much either. So let's just get into this fucking bullshit, all right? So, I was gonna make a video talking about CM Punk's MMA Hour session, right? But this just completely overshadowed everything. But for those that don't know what happened, CM Punk, he was asked by Ariel Helwani about the All-In incident and just how all that came about. And he, told his recount of the story, right? And to which Tony Khan had two different responses for it. One that I was actually okay with. The second one, but again, we'll get into it. So let's get into the one I agreed with that not everyone else did either, which is fine. But the Adam Copeland one. All right. This one I didn't have much of a problem with, to be honest. I was actually going to defend it. A lot of people disagreed with it. But basically, Adam Copeland came out, gave a rah-rah speech about AEW in response to what CM Punk had said. Okay? Now, whether this was a case of Adam Copeland, and I could see him, talking to Tony Khan, telling him, listen, man, I'll talk to the fans. Let me see if I can, deviate away from this negativity, fight it with some positivity, and just keep things going. And if Adam Copeland came out there, whether this was Adam's idea or Tony Khan's idea, had no problem with it, because essentially, it was the same deal that Jon Moxley did, where when the brawl-in situation or the brawl-out situation happened, what did they do? They had Jon Moxley come out, give a little rah-rah speech, and basically get everybody excited for AEW. That was the same intent here with Adam Copeland. Now, from what I remember from that promo, it didn't go over as well, but I like the intent nonetheless. Right? And if Adam Copeland wants to come out and say, hey, everybody, listen, I know there's been a lot of negativity spewed towards the reputation of this company that I love so much, but I would like to remind you that this company is doing very good right now. Things are exciting right now, and blah, 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 and I'm having the most fun I've ever had in my career, and all this other stuff that he said. You know what? I have no problem with it. Cool. It's taking the high road. It's the response that, if he's gonna give a response, it's probably the best one he could have given. Okay? Sure, it was unnecessary, and I will very much agree that it was very unnecessary. A lot of people called it pathetic, which, okay, fine. If you're entitled to that opinion, if you feel like it was a pathetic look on the company. I can't say that I fully disagree with that assessment, right? But nonetheless, it's the best possible response he could have given, next to just not responding at all, which he also could have done, but he chose not to. But okay. So let's talk about how this came about. How Tony Khan wanted to play this footage. Because, see, when I first read the news that Tony Khan was going to be airing the footage, I was as curious as all hell to see what was going to happen, right? At first, I thought it was fake. I thought it was some fake tweet put up by some fan that confirmed this. But no, it was very much real, right? As confirmed by 3 different sources, not just Dave Meltzer, who I actively don't trust, but also from Sean Ross Sapp, who's a reputable source, and another one, which I don't remember right now in this very moment, confirming that Tony Khan was going to be airing the footage, right? The Young Bucks are sitting down in a segment, and they're talking about their rival, the FTR. And they started talking about someone who was good friends with the FTR, getting into it and causing a disruption against someone who was their problems. They got a little cute in their little promo, and they had made a mention of something he had said, which was, if you have a problem with Jack Perry, chances are you're the problem, which I found hilarious. But given the context of the whole storyline and the beef and how all this came to be, pretty sure that line didn't really age very, very well. Now, did it? So they had them briefly talk about it, and then they aired the footage, which is a cop-out reason to get this whole thing going, but whatever, let's just go with it, I guess. And FTR, rightfully so, later on in the episode, they came out to ask, what was the benefit of rolling out this footage? And that's exactly my question, as well as other people who have questioned this segment. What was the benefit? What was the benefit? What did this do? What did this accomplish? Anyway. So whether in storyline the point is to get under the Young Bucks' skin, it still doesn't answer the question as to what the fuck was the point of this. Anyway. So, the Young Bucks, they roll this footage, and what we see is Jack Perry, he's coming out from his match. CM Punk is walking straight to him. And when I watched this, I was really trying to think, okay, how different is this story from what CM Punk said in the interview? CM Punk is clearly just trying to talk to Jack Perry at first, right? They're exchanging some words, and they're both talking to each other at first. It seems calm, right? Nobody's, up in arms. Everybody's doing their own thing. You do see like 2 or 3 refs looking at Jack and Punk, but everybody else, for the most part, is minding their own business. And then, at one point, Punk, he pushes Jack Perry twice, and then he walks towards Jack Perry, to which it looks like Jack Perry tried to tackle him or do something, and Punk got him in a front headlock. And finally, everyone broke them up. CM Punk, he bumps into one of the monitors unintentionally, because one of the reports was that he knocked down a monitor, but it was unintentional. And then you see them being pulled apart, and CM Punk, finally, he goes and he looks towards Tony Khan, who's hiding behind one of the desks, and he starts yelling at him. You can clearly see him visibly mad, and then he gets restrained again, and finally CM Punk just throws his hands up in the air, and he just walks away. So, essentially, this story was not that different from what CM Punk said. Not that different at all. The only thing that was different from what CM Punk had said was CM Punk said he choked Jack Perry. Now, I don't know if, the front headlock is what he meant, because when I think of choke, I think of Homer Simpson strangling Bart Simpson. That's what I think when I hear the word choke. But, technically a front headlock is considered a chokehold. So, yeah. All right, in all intents and purposes, he did, choke Jack Perry. And he didn't have it on him long. He didn't. It was just enough to kind of get this bullshit, settled. And you see Samoa Joe restraining Jack, and you see 2 or 3 people restraining CM Punk. So essentially, all this video did was prove that CM Punk was not lying in his recount. Not from any standpoint, but you do see that CM Punk did, throw the first punch, metaphorically speaking here. He didn't punch Jack Perry. He just threw the first punch, again, metaphorically, meaning as in he did put his hands on Jack Perry first. So what that does need to be said about this is, look, CM Punk did put his hands on a coworker, and that cannot be excused. Unfortunately, I understand CM Punk's situation, but it cannot be excused. Outside of that, fuck Jack Perry. Right? Now, another thing that this proved was that CM Punk did not lunge at Tony Khan, as the reports were suggesting. He lunged at Tony Khan. No, he did not. You saw the video. We all saw the video. He did not lunge at Tony Khan. He yelled at him. He got to the desk and confronted Tony Khan, and he told him, "You're a clown." That's when he was, I'd imagine, that's when he yelled at Tony Khan, called him a clown, and told him he quits. Right? But lunging, that is not a lunge. That is not a lunge whatsoever. So, that can be put to bed. So, now another thing is, I see that a lot of people were asking about the audio. A lot of people were saying they expected audio and stuff like that. And, it got me thinking about two things here. So, as far as the audio stuff goes, so I work in security, right? So when we're rolling back tape or we're investigating footage and trying to get footage or whatever the hell, whatever the reason might be, whatever the case might be, we don't get audio, rolled back in our tape. We don't. And I believe, now this is information that was given to me by a coworker, not a boss or a manager. So I don't know how, how true this is or how accurate it is. I'd probably have to ask one of my bosses, but I never bothered to ask. But from what I understand, it's considered an invasion of privacy, and it's considered illegal to have audio recording of footage that's being, audio footage, or audio of the footage that's being taken, being recorded. It's illegal, and it's considered an invasion of privacy. That's what I've heard. Again, don't know how accurate that is. You guys would probably have to do your research on that one. But this is just from what I know from working security. So that's why there's no audio to any of this. But I guarantee you, if they did have audio, they would put the audio in too, because I'd imagine people would want to hear what they had to say. And I'd imagine that this would allow people to kind of understand, okay, what did Jack Perry say to him? What did Jack Perry do? But, so that's basically how all this went. So with that in mind, let's get into the next thing I wanted to say about this. Nobody benefited from this. Nobody whatsoever. Nothing changes out of this. This changes nothing. AEW does not get more heat or ratings or anything of the sort going forward because of airing this. Right? They will not gain fans for airing this. It's very doubtful. CM Punk does not look any worse coming out of this. People who think he was in the wrong are going to still think he was in the wrong. People who think he was in the right are going to still think he was in the right. And if anything, you got more people on CM Punk's side. Because if you're looking at fan camera footage, which is how I watched this whole segment, because fuck AEW, I would hate to give them any ratings, any of my attention. So I'd rather give, the rating number to some guy recording this online. But you see, the fans, as they're watching CM Punk push Jack Perry, they are cheering CM Punk. They are chanting CM Punk. They're cheering for the guy. The guy that you're trying to make look bad. And furthermore, a guy that you're trying to make look bad who no longer works for the company. He's moved on with his life. You need to move on from yours. The Adam Copeland thing was the perfect response. The best way to do it is to take the high road and move the fuck on. You chose not to do that. Instead, you chose to waste your own TV time and everybody's time doing this. And of course, that bullshit segment with Will Ospreay, which I won't even discuss here. For what? For what? For what benefit? As Bully Ray said, what does this accomplish? How does AEW benefit from this? That's what Bully Ray said. You know, it's ridiculous that this is what Tony fucking Khan decided to spend his time, his program, his money, and his investment on doing this. But, you know, going back to the security thing real quick, because it's just a quick thought I forgot to mention, right? Look, if their program is the same as the program my work uses, you know, the footage should delete, you know, about 30 to 60 days from the time it was recorded. You know, I'd imagine that Wembley Stadium's footage would be the same thing. You know, if not similar, maybe it would die some point later on down the line. How long have they had this footage? That's what I want to know. How long have they had this footage, you know, sitting in their banks? And why have they had this footage for this long? Why? What is the point? You know, because there's no way that they just suddenly called up Wembley, hey, you know, I'd like to request this piece of footage that happened, you know, what was it, 6 months ago, last year? Like, that's inconceivable. This was clearly, you know, held on to. This was recorded and held on to for a specific period of time, and only now decided to record it, be uploaded for the internet to see, and for what purpose? For what purpose? I don't know. But you know who I feel bad for in this whole thing, in this whole fiasco? Tony Schiavone. Right? Now, look, a lot of people are making speculations about how this is similar to WCW 2000. I didn't grow up watching WCW 2000, so I don't know. I can't comment on that one. But what I can say is this dude looks so visibly embarrassed for this company or to be a part of this company. The fact that this was even airing, there's an infamous screen grab of him just sinking his face into his palms, and he just looks like he just does not want to be there. This poor man, you know, who, just like Jim Ross said online as well, this poor man just wanted to move on from this whole situation. And now he has to relive it, watching it along with the rest of the crowd on this episode of AEW, who, by the way, nobody's going to give a shit about, you know, 6 months to a year from now. You know, unless they're just going to use it to mock Tony Khan. So, it's ridiculous to me. The Young Bucks. There were reports that the Young Bucks were against this idea in the first place. And you know what? If even the Young Bucks, the same immature duo who, when CM Punk got fired, the same duo who decided to do a victory lap around the ring, make themselves look even worse in this whole situation, if even they were against the idea of airing this footage, that tells you something about this idea. And that's why I say this was a bad idea, and how Tony Khan accomplished something huge. He brought a divided community together to agree that this idea was absolutely stupid. Because even his own internal employees disagreed with this move. And this was just a bad decision. So, you know what? To the credit of the Young Bucks, even them, to the credit of the Young Bucks, which is a sentence I never thought I'd say, even they had the self-awareness to know just that nothing good was going to come out of pulling a stunt like this. So credit to them as well. Hopefully they tried to talk Tony Khan out of this idea, but I'm not holding my breath. Well, look, I'm just going to say this much. Tony Khan, after watching this and just really thinking about everything this man does, Tony Khan really needs to step down. And he really needs to step down. Because, oh my God, this is absolutely ridiculous. This is just taking, thin skin to a new level. All right, because if it's one thing that he responds poorly to criticism. He has his flaws, right? He's done things like he's had meltdowns at media scrums, something people criticize CM Punk for, but, and something he also should deservedly have meltdowns, deservedly have criticisms for. The man is petulant and immature. The man is just ridiculously petty. And he's just not a leader. Above all, he proved CM Punk right, which is another sentiment that a lot of people have been saying. Essentially, this is a man who, when trying to shoot a 3-point shot for his own team, he ends up giving a slam dunk for the other team. All he really did was give CM Punk free press. And he just reminds people that CM Punk no longer works for AEW. He works at WWE, which means they're free to go and switch channels to watch WWE. I don't know why Tony Khan thought this was a good idea. But stuff like this, factor in the lack of leadership, factor in the lack of communication, factor in the various examples of him being spineless in all of this. And then this being, sprinkles on top of a shit Sunday. This is exactly why Tony Khan needs to step down from being the president or CEO or creative, whatever it is he does for AEW, right? Outside of being president of AEW, he needs to step down and let someone else take over the company. Because if he truly loves this baby and he wants it to grow and he wants it to succeed and he wants the people who are in the company to succeed, he has to step down. And he has to let somebody else take charge and run the ship who properly knows how to run a company. Because like CM Punk said, he's not a proper businessman. He's not a proper leader. He's not a boss. This is not what a boss does. So that's just what I think in all of this. This is just an awful, awful, awful decision that Tony Khan made. And really, it's just going to make people look at him in a different light and look at AEW in a different light, if they haven't already. Because there's plenty of reasons to look at Tony Khan in a less than satisfying light. All right, because the man has had several examples of being a petulant child. I've only listed a few. Right? I don't need to get into what other people have said about the man. But if this alone is enough to make people look at you in a different light. So that's all I got for you guys. Thank you for watching, everybody. Take care.